just heard a comparison of police to the parable of the sheep and the shepherds, and the shepherds and the sheep herders, and just kind of this idea just kind of popped into my head. This thing popped into my head, and I started crying a little bit. The scripture, the shepherd layeth down his life for the sheep. I just imagined this, kind of concept. So, for one, of citizens, people being sheep and policemen being shepherds, and just imagining a rough neighborhood or something like that where a few people are making it rough and bad for a lot of people. And just, this kind of idea of, what if a police officer was seen as laying down his life for one of us? Just, they do that a lot. I don't know a lot, but they've done that before. And just that really hit me hard. And then another image of a few people acting like wolves and trying to take power and authority and things through violent or immoral means. And causing lots of trouble. And that just, what if a community stood up? What if one policeman was able to walk in, and that door after door after door opened, and they knew what he was going to go do? What if there was a drug house or a mob house or something where someone moves in to a nice community, and at first it seems okay, but then you start hearing gunshots at night, and you start hearing about more and more kids in high school and stuff getting addicted to drugs. And you see cars coming and going late at night, and you see all these things, and pretty soon that house, people can't walk by it, and there's boards screwed up over the windows, and there's, strange noises and gunshots in the neighborhood and things, and you know that there's basically a little mini army in there causing a cancer on your society, that they're selling drugs, they're doing immoral things, pornography and related things, guns and violence and crime and stealing, all kinds of things. And just to imagine this house, this organization that is seemingly single-handedly unstoppable and tearing down piece by piece what the peace and comfort that society has. And then to see a lone police officer walk down the street towards that house a police officer that has been known in that neighborhood and has befriended every single family in that neighborhood, and then to be walking down the street and to see door after door after door open, and citizens on that street join him and walk with him, and as he walks down this, when he starts down the street, he's all alone, but by the time he gets to the front door, he has the true vote, the true conviction, the reality of that neighborhood behind him. That it's not 90% crime. It's not that the crime is chosen or decided upon or things like that. It's that the righteousness is finally seen in its strength, and that the wrong has its time of reckoning. And I guess just a few more things would just be like officers going out door to door, and instead of looking for trouble or looking for ways to find people or things like that, just going out and getting to know people, and maybe starting with one street and learning everyone's last name on that street, and then learning every member of every family on that street down to the newborns, and then getting to know them and what kind of things they like to do and stuff, and then having briefings where those classic scenes in movies with police officers where you've got 20 or so guys in almost like a classroom type setting with the chief up in the front of the room, and he's describing a few things and giving out assignments, and that what if instead of talking about crime and things like that, what if he gets up to the front of the room and he reads a scripture? What if he reads, "And the shepherd layeth down his life for the sheep," or "And he went about doing good," or "And the shepherd knows his sheep and is known of them." Things like that, or inspirational quotes, or things like that. And that what if he gave out assignments so go get to know the people on your beat. Try and be good friends with everybody. Because every friend you make as a police officer I don't know what. It's worth a lot. It's valuable. It's good. It is not only an incredible savings to the department and things like that as far as money goes, but it is saving the communities. The communities cannot survive alone, or the communities cannot survive by our authority alone. We cannot keep the peace without the communities. We cannot keep the peace without good relationships with the communities. So get to know them. Be good friends. And I was thinking I'm listening to a book by Stephen Covey called The Eighth Habit, and he talked about citizen policing. That some communities have reduced crime in their areas. He said by 60%, but just by a lot, basically, um, by citizens stepping up. And just I was thinking, I'd like to go into a police station or a sheriff station. Up here, it'd all be sheriff, I think, county sheriff, because we're not a city. We're just in the county. And then to just say, basically, I've seen what bad neighborhoods are like, and I'd like to avoid my neighborhood getting to be like that. And I'd like to avoid my neighborhood getting to be like that, and I'd like to learn, if possible, ways to help mend and heal and improve neighborhoods that already are like that, and help out wherever I can in my life. And just to say that I think a good first step, at least, would be to build up some good relationships with law enforcement. To not have them be strangers from the outside, but to see them for what they are, fellow citizens and friends, members of my community that maybe live just down the street or within a few miles. To not see them as strangers, but to see them as friends. And just to, want to volunteer or, throw a county sheriff barbecue or something. And just get good relationships going and things like that. I've had this idea of avalanches for a long time, that there's all these different forms of avalanches that are either waiting to falling, either waiting to fall or falling, and instead of and a lot of them don't take seconds, they take years, but they're falling all the same, and they've got just as much and way more crushing weight. So like some have already fallen and just are falling more and more in places. So like crime, that like the decay of society, that I'd like to learn how to help maintain good communities and how to help build good communities. That I don't like the idea of, because from what I see, it looks like it's almost inevitable. Like you have a barren piece of land. You have barren land, a desert, a forest, a jungle, a river plains, a valley, whatever. And then it starts to get inhabited and settled and things. And it starts out, maybe there's a bit of crime at the beginning, but usually starts out pretty peaceful. And then more and more and more and more and more people come in. And the more people that come in, it seems like the crime just goes up and up and up and up. And like, why not? Like that seems extremely pessimistic to say that the inevitable is we're all going to be extremely violent and mean and cruel and immoral. And just and um, criminals and things like that. And just I don't want to give in to that, and I would like some ways to repel that, to make it so that it doesn't happen as quickly, so that it doesn't happen as much, and ways to even bring it back. That like we have ways to fight off mold and pests and things like that, but I'd like ways to really improve societies. That something to take something that was not so great and turn it into something better. Um, and so, some ways people do that is through, increasing, removing poverty and things like that with money. Um, and one type of avalanche that I see is the gap between the law and the norm. So where I live, up here in Camino and Pollock Pines is nearby, and Placerville is nearby, and Cameron Park is nearby. For one, the law is almost ridiculous. The law is like impossible in so many ways. But then, what parts of the law that could be followed aren't? And so, a growing so up where I live, there's this tremendous gap between what is legal and what people do. So, as far as how to make money. So, if you run a business, you're supposed to have all these things checked off. And in order to do those, you often can't compete because you can't really make it because there's so many that don't follow the law. And then even if you could make it, even if that's not what's stopping you, you can't make it because in order to pay your own bills, you have to pay for all these services that are so expensive because of all the litigation around it. Yeah. And just to be able to shorten that gap, to take it from everyone breaking the law because they figure it's pointless and useless and hopeless to follow through on the law. And just I keep seeing that eventually, so at the moment we're able to be pretty peaceful without law enforcement, without lawyers, without legal disputes. But as more and more people come in, when there's a dispute, it seems like, at least for me, I don't really dispute it that much. I mean, I don't go to court. I don't go to the police if I have some kind of dispute with somebody. Mostly because I don't have that big of disputes. But like, so if a customer doesn't pay me, I don't go to try and sue them. If someone threatens me, no, that hasn't really happened, I guess. I don't know. If something seems dangerous, I don't just call the police. I do call the highway patrol quite a bit to talk about dangers on the freeway. So like there's a ladder on the freeway, or a lawn chair, or a truck rack, or something that could cause an accident. I tell the highway patrol so that they can get it off the freeway. But as far as like home things, like I don't report if someone's not following code or the law or something like that. I don't do things like that. But eventually, I do see that in order for lots of people to interact in tight spaces, you need some ground rules. You need some coordination. You need some things where people follow through on stuff. So like the road. Like when you're like in the desert or like in the mountains or something, like actually no. So when you're on the road, like if you stay on the right side of the yellow line, it's a pretty big important thing. And out here, there's often so little traffic that like people, if they need to, can just do a like 9-point turn right in the road and go across both lanes as they're zigzagging to turn around. And usually there's no issue. And if a car comes up, they're usually willing to just sit there and wait. But if you're in a big city, so if the population up here multiplied by 10 or 100, and instead of having roads that were one lane both directions, having roads that were 4 or 5 lanes both directions, then being able to do a U-turn in the middle of the street wouldn't be very fair to other people. Like if you tried to do a U-turn, and that same thing of cars coming up and waiting, if you had to wait for somebody to do a U-turn like that, by the time you get around, there might be, let's say, like 50 cars lined up behind, all blocked up because you didn't do that. And then those 50 cars are blocking another 25 or more cars from people trying to get out of their driveway onto the road, or trying to get out of a business onto the road, or trying to get out of a parking lot onto the road, or trying to get anywhere. That just as things get tighter and tighter, that I do think that we're going to need to follow more and more standards of how we use the land, how we interact with each other, things like that. I mean, like, so like me, if I go and work for somebody and they don't pay me, usually it's like 1 in 100 times that like most everybody I work for pays me, and there's like been 1 or 2 people that haven't paid me. And I'd rather not have a whole bunch of hard feelings and be mean to people. Then I'd rather be kind and everything and just let it slide than, I don't know, go and like take them to court and stuff. But if everybody did that, or if everybody did that to me, or if even like half my customers did that to me, or if I went out and I had, say, 100 hours that month, or I don't know, I mean, there's lots of different, 100 customers, 100 jobs that month, and 50 of them didn't pay, then I might have to go and start getting some kind of legal backup to say you have to pay for the services you did, or making people pay ahead of time, or things like that. I do think that we're going to need to follow more rules the more and more people that get up here. Yeah. And so the fact that so many of us break so many of the existing rules, I think we as citizens need to work harder to find ways to follow more rules, and we also need to be more active in changing the rules that really do need to be changed. I don't know. I do have this kind of theory that there are some rules that should exist. There are some rules where kind of the purpose of the rule isn't to be enforced 100% of the time in every situation. The purpose of the rule is to allow for law enforcement to intervene when things pass a certain point that clearly demonstrates that they are out of hand. Like working on a vehicle, or like doing mechanic work on the side. I don't know what you call it. Like repairing cars, repairing your own cars. That as far as I know is technically illegal, but without a license. And if you did have a license, you're often even more held accountable for it, and so you have to. Usually those people follow through and do it the same way they do it for their customers. Yeah, kind of like how preparing food for personal use usually you aren't hassled about as far as standards of how it was prepared and how it was stored and how it was transported and things like that. But like if you work at a place that prepares food, so if you work at a deli or something like that, and you go and you start making yourself a sandwich, and you're not wearing gloves, and you didn't wash your hands, and you're using items that you brought from home and weren't transported in a refrigeration, and etc., then that often is more likely and more often called out on and even fined and prosecuted about. Yeah. Yeah. I gotta go.